So, what are some of the best practices you can follow to make sure your measurement system is prepared for an audit? Well, here to tell us is Eric Gasper of PQ Systems. Thanks for joining us, Eric.
Hi, Dirk. Hi, Mike. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.
Thanks for being here.
When it comes to an audit for something like, let's say, ISO IEC 17025 or ISO TS 16949, what is it that an auditor is concerned with as it regards the measurement system, a company's measurement system?
Well, that's a great question, but it's also a pretty challenging one just because of the kind of wide berth that some of these different standards are going to cover. The first thing is the ISO 17025, that is going to be mostly for calibration labs, the people that are the vendors that are doing some of the harder equipment. That's the type of standard that they're going to have to follow and adhere to. The TS 16949, that's going to be more related to the automotive industry. Both of these things are a little bit difficult in the sense that you have to do a lot of work, a lot of prep, but I think the biggest thing is just getting everything organized and also knowing that you need to keep everything well documented, as you kind of stated just a moment ago. So you can go a long way with organizational skills. There are people that still have paper systems to be able to keep track of all their measurement systems, although there's a lot of commercially available software or companies that build their own software that can make things a lot easier during audit time.
So Eric, let me ask you this. What do you think are the most common mistakes or shortcomings when it comes to measurement systems?
I feel the most common mistake that companies go through is a lack of organization and then also a lack of ownership. You have people that are thrust into positions. They used to be a technician on the line, and all of a sudden now they might be the quality person, the person that's supposed to be in charge of their gauges and tools and devices, and they don't really know all the ins and outs of these different standards that they're supposed to be adhering to. So the lack of ownership could be a big problem in organizations, and the disorganization. Not being able to find gauges are lost or missing but aren't documented as such. And the worst case is actually using gauges that are overdue, and that could really all stem from those two things, lack of organization and not having a particular point person, an owner that is kind of carrying the system through all the way from start, finish, and really reviewing it periodically.
Do you think there's also, you mentioned that sometimes a person is kind of thrust into this position. When it comes to measurement systems and measurement system analysis and understanding how all these various pieces, the operators, calibration, the physical environment, how all those work together, do you think there is a sense in some cases where the person given responsibility for this just doesn't really understand how critical all these different pieces are?
I think that's a very accurate statement. I've talked to numerous kind of customers of ours where they're really good at the calibration side of it. They've been doing that for a long time. They understand the purpose and the point of it, but they're a little bit fuzzy on some of the MSA studies or doing an expanded uncertainty study. They know they have to do it because it meets a requirement, but they don't really understand what the point of it is, and that's really hard to get the most out of it. You're trying to do something that's telling you about your measurement system that you didn't already know. If you're just going through the motions and doing a study just to get it complete so you can check a box, you're not really taking advantage of the purpose of what some of those studies are. And in general, my last comment about that is it is pretty common that people get themselves into a position of expertise, and they're the person that's been here the longest, so we're going to rely on this particular resource, and they're going to hopefully be the ones that could know all about our measurement system. And that's really good, but at the same time, it puts a lot of pressure on somebody that doesn't really know all the ins and outs of a particular standard, and they can get themselves into some trouble.
Eric, if a company, in your opinion, if a company were to focus on doing just one thing to improve its measurement system, what would you say that would be?
I think the first thing to get started would be to really review and research the particular standard that company has to adhere to. It's very difficult to hit a target when you can't even see it. So many companies, what I would suggest is start by getting a copy of the TS 16949 or the ISO 17025 or the AS 9100. That's for aerospace. But really sit with your quality engineers, Also talk with your actual owners of the company. If you get buy-in from them, that helps spread the ownership. Everybody can appreciate and understand what you're trying to accomplish and why it's good to get these certifications. But really review, look at them, and if you have questions, my best advice is to look abroad. Go online. There are numerous forums from different areas, different industries, where companies, people are all going through the same thing. So the question that you might have has probably already been addressed by a number of other different people going through the same experience. The other thing is there's lots of training and classes and different auditors that have been retired or are still active. They are a good resource too. They can give you some really good points on what you need to look for. And that's pretty much the first thing I would say. The number one goal, really understand, research, and know what you're supposed to be adhering to. Otherwise, it's might take a little bit of difficult timing to get through a particular audit.
How important is documentation throughout all of this, and what types of things are companies? What types of things do companies need to document in terms of their measurement system? And I'm assuming there's things like your calibration, your calibration schedule, and whether you've calibrated equipment at a particular time and it's up to date, that sort of thing. I mean, just in general, what types of documentation do you think auditors might be looking for?
Well, there's a statement that it's not what you can do, it's what you can prove you've done, and a lot of that goes from just well-maintained and accurate documentation. Probably one of the first things that an auditor might want to review or look at is take a particular gauge and show me the last so many calibrations and show me the calibration certificates that go with that. Now, from an outside vendor, somebody like a calibration house, they're going to send you a certificate that is going to be hopefully adhered to by the standards that are laid out in the ISO 17025, so things like a unique certificate number, the masters or standards that were used to be able to verify against. If there is NIST traceability, and certain auditors kind of look for that more than others. Also, uncertainty values need to be present on that documentation as well. So an auditor, when they're talking about the documentation, what they're looking for is it present? Is it easily reviewable? Can you find it? Do you have to dig for it? And is it associated with the correct gauges? Lost documentation could be a really big problem, and it's probably one of the things that is easily avoidable if you have come up with a great way to store these, whether they be paper or you're storing them electronically somewhere on a shared network.
Okay. Well, Eric Gasper, Project Manager for PQ Systems. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning. Now, Eric and I, well, I should say I'll be there, and Eric will be Eric will be doing all the talking, but I'll introduce him anyway. At a webinar next week called 4 Steps to an Audit-Proof Measurement System. That's going to be May 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And again, it'll be hosted by myself, but Eric Gasper will be there to share his knowledge on how to audit-proof your measurement system. So Eric, thanks again for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, we'll talk to you next week.
You too. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Eric. We'll see you on Thursday.